Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
I have this friend, Sabrina, not her real name. She was my roommate in my first year of university, and we have been friends since then. I didn't have anyone else to talk to in the first week of school, so we were stuck together with each other. As the weeks went by, we met other people. After graduation, we lost touch because she moved out of the city. Still, we reconnected a few years ago on social media. We got talking, and it was sad to hear that things were not going as well as they should have for her. She was basically struggling and trying to decide her next step of action. After a year of trying to make things work, she decided to move back to New York. It wasn't an easy transition for her because of the financial challenges, so I spoke to my husband. We decided to accommodate her until she got her bearings back. When I asked her to come to live with me, she was a little hesitant because she said she didn't want to be a bother and that I had already done a lot for her and so on. I literally forced her to come to live with me, and we had a good time. It was lovely for me to have someone around aside from my kids and husband. She got a job that could help with minor expenses. She was accommodating in the house. I think she really felt uncomfortable, so she tried to repay me by ensuring she got some groceries and did the chores. I didn't mind that she helped around the house, though I told her that she didn't have to bother. Everything was going well until I came home and noticed that she wasn't feeling good one day. She complained that she was tired, had nausea, and was generally feeling weird. That sounded like pregnancy, so I asked her to take a test. She looked at me, and the sudden realization that she had missed her period came. I had a kit in my room, so I gave it to her. Our suspicions were confirmed. She was pregnant. She got an appointment at the hospital for further confirmations and to know how far along she had gone. It was a bittersweet moment for her because she had always wanted kids. Still, she wanted them when she was already financially stable. She was pro-life and didn't want to do an abortion. I was happy for her, and it wasn't a problem to have a pregnant lady live in my house. I thought that she would do the same for me if I was in a similar situation. Besides, my house was big enough to contain all of us. After the initial bittersweet moment, she became really excited to tell her boyfriend. He had been to the house only a few times at the time. He also wanted to have kids, so it worked out perfectly for them. On the other hand, I was excited that I got to take care of a mom-to-be. I have 3 kids of my own, so it's safe to say that I am experienced. My husband was somewhat neutral when he heard the news. He wasn't unhappy for her, but just concerned if we could handle it. He was a more logical person among us and liked to plan. He thought that if she was going to start a family, it would be better if she moved out for convenience. I believed that she would eventually have to move, but there was no rush. Slowly, things started to change. Sabrina became more cranky and irritable and always wanted her boyfriend around. She just behaved in a really annoying way. I tried to give excuses for her, saying it was her first pregnancy, which must be stressful for her. However, I also knew that she didn't have to act the way she was, but I chose to ignore her behavior. I, low-key, wanted her out of the house at this time, but I thought that would be wrong. AITA? You wouldn't believe what happened. I wish I had listened to my gut feeling and asked Sabrina to leave. Anyways, I met up with my long-time crush. I'll call him Lenny. He was the first person I fell in love with, but we didn't date because he was leaving the country and we both didn't want long-distance relationships. Before I met my husband, I had often wondered what it would have been like if we dated. Sabrina and I went out one evening and we met him. Lenny and I still had strong chemistry and I could feel my heart racing in my chest. He looked better than I remembered him. He collected my number and we got talking. All the while, I felt guilty for even giving him my number, but Sabrina said I was just being childish and it wasn't like I was doing anything with him. Lenny told me that he was single and regretted not trying to start a relationship earlier on. He tried to insinuate that we could still have something, and that was when I snapped back into reality. I told him I was married and wasn't available for that anymore. He seemed shocked, but I disregarded his reaction. He asked for dinner with me one last time, and then we would go our separate ways. I didn't want it, but I also thought that it was a harmless dinner and I needed it to close the chapter. Plus, Sabrina was going to be there, so nothing crazy would happen. We went out that evening, and it was so much fun. Still, within me, I was telling my heart to let Lenny go because I had decided that I would intentionally try not to see him again after that day. Sabrina and I got home later than I wanted to, and my husband asked us where we were because he was worried. Sabrina casually told him where we were and who we were with. My husband was disappointed and hurt because he thought something was going on between Lenny and me, since I never mentioned that we met up. He knew how in love I was with him, so I precisely wanted to leave out that detail. Sabrina behaved like she couldn't understand what she did wrong. She put me in a mess I didn't know how to get out of. I started to have unnecessary problems with my husband. We fought a lot. He didn't trust me anymore, and he came home late. I tried to explain to him what really happened and that I had intended for that to be the last time I met with Lenny. So I asked Sabrina to come with me. He didn't believe me. Now I saw less and less of my husband and more of Sabrina's boyfriend. He was always at the house. It annoyed me a lot, mainly because I had problems in my home and Sabrina was acting oblivious to it. It was almost as though she was enjoying it. I desperately wanted to save my marriage, so I decided to ask Lenny to speak to my husband and tell him the truth about everything. I asked to meet up with him and found out that it wasn't all a coincidence. Sabrina had actually asked to meet him. He asked about me and told her he wished to pursue something with me. So she said she would try to set something up. I was in shock because she acted like it was all a coincidence. This also made me believe that her casually saying to my husband that we were with Lenny that night and intentionally making us come home as part of her plan all along. I needed to find out what game she was playing before my marriage was utterly destroyed. Lenny told me that Sabrina omitted the part that I was married, and he was actually surprised when I told him. I shared my suspicions with him and asked him to play along with Sabrina to find out what she was really doing. He sent her a text in my presence that said he wanted to speak to her about me with a heart-shaped emoji. She replied in less than a minute and they agreed to meet up somewhere in town. Lenny found that my suspicions were correct. She set us up on a purpose so that my husband would find out and not be interested in our marriage, and then she could move her boyfriend into the house. That was a twisted thing to do, and only a psychopath would go through so many intentional steps to inflict pain in someone else's life. I called the cops, and Lenny and I told them everything. This is what I get for being a good person. I just wanted to help her, and she repays me by trying to destroy my marriage for selfish reasons. How could she think that if I separated from my husband, she could get her boyfriend to move in with us? I wouldn't let that happen, except she had another plan to manipulate me into it. Lenny met with my husband and told him how everything happened and that he never meant to come between us. He also admitted that he made advances at me when he didn't know that I was married, and I sternly declined. My husband forgave me and things were coming back to normal, but I knew that I still had to gain his trust. I could have prevented it if I had not let my friend live with us or told him that I had met Lenny. It would have been so much easier to tell my husband what happened before Sabrina could do anything, because it only made me look like I was hiding something. I have learnt my lesson, and I will never let anyone come to live in my home again for a protracted period. If they want to stay longer than 1 to 2 days, they are not welcome. I would gladly direct them to a guest house. NTA. I wish you had followed your gut when you felt it was time for her to leave your house. You wouldn't have gotten into any trouble and probably never have seen Lenny again. NTA. I don't think there was anything wrong in having dinner with an old schoolmate. Even though I know it was more complicated than that, that was the baseline. Your husband should have trusted you.
Next story.
Long story short, we have been trying to financially recover from my husband hopping jobs and then not actually working at all for about 3 months. Our bank account was emptied. We had to go through a debt consolidation process. I had to empty out a retirement account. We almost got evicted, almost lost both of our vehicles, the whole 9 yards. He started working again, including some overtime. My position is salary, so overtime isn't an option for me. We had a pretty intense conversation in the midst of it all, with me telling him that the next time this happens, I wouldn't put up with it. We got caught up on rent, got caught up on the cars, everything. But then he started calling out of work again. And then he changed his shift when someone had him out of work for almost 2 weeks. He still has a job. He worked yesterday, but he's been going less and less. His last check was almost $500 less than what it usually is. And that's just for 1 week. Today, I had a doctor's appointment in a different city that I scheduled a decent amount of time before I was supposed to be at work, so I wasn't expecting any calls. I went to my doctor's appointment, stopped to get gas, and then my car wouldn't start. Tried to call my husband, and I got the "You're not able to make calls" recording. The bill is in his name due to that being an agreement we have. I handle rent, utilities, etc. He handles miscellaneous things. Found a place with Wi-Fi and tried to call him through Messenger. Got that taken care of, but was still a little bit frustrated at being stranded for a bit with no phone. We got all that dealt with. He calls the phone company to see if we can get an extension or make a smaller payment on it. Nope, it's going to be way over past due. And this thing hasn't been paid in a few months, with the grand total being over $500, which we don't have. Close, but not quite. My job is a traveling position. Most of my work requires me to have a phone between calls, texts, the whole thing. I am technically on call 24/7. My immediate reaction was, now this man is messing with my job, the one thing I thought he couldn't. I broke down in tears and told him to get out and to not come back until the phone bill was paid. He's not getting a paycheck this week because of how long he was out due to him switching shifts. So that means it'll have to be next week when I get paid. He was pretty much speechless, packed his stuff, and left with one of his friends. I have been a complete wreck since, and I keep wondering if I made the right decision. Am I the a-hole for kicking him out? I'm sorry I'm not able to respond to everyone. I'm trying to get caught back up with work I missed today. I spoke with him about getting our phone bills split, and he's completely in agreement with it. He is currently at work right now. I do thank you all for the input and advice, and even for the suggestions for how I can help support myself or him better, whether that be the responses of getting a divorce or trying to listen to him more. I do have a different bank account set up that I was already just starting to put a little bit at a time in. We're talking like $50 at a time. But I think I'm going to start moving more over just in case and have my phone and my car switched to coming out of that instead. For the people who have mentioned therapy, I currently do go to therapy once a month that's covered by my insurance. He went once and never went back. The idea of couples counseling has been mentioned before, but to me, I really don't want to invest time and money into something that's going to be a moot point if he can't work on himself. We also did try couples therapy a few years ago, and he was completely unresponsive. Like, legitimately just kind of sat there and gave one-word responses to everything. The therapist got frustrated. It was a whole thing. He also, believe it or not, would use his couples therapy appointments to get out of going to work, and then wouldn't go to the appointment with me. More questions that get asked. Yes, my work does have a $100 a month stipend for phones. The problem is my reimbursement checks go into our joint bank account, which wasn't an issue to me because I thought the phone bill was getting paid. I'm going to start putting those in my second bank account and have my phone bill set to come out of that. Also, yes, he does have mental health issues. He has anxiety, depression, and ADHD, but he doesn't take his meds often, and it was like pulling teeth to get him to go to therapy because he doesn't like it. He went once and never went back. Also, I didn't want to make a decision the day of because I know I was emotional yesterday. But moving forward, if I put my reimbursement checks and a portion of my check into my bank account each pay period, I can make sure my stuff is covered while also saving up for a deposit and first month's rent for my own place. Our house is currently a 3-bedroom, not something I would need on my own. I might not be able to get a house, but I can definitely afford an apartment on my own. Our lease is up in December for this house. He has until then to put some effort into his mental health, show me he can consistently go to work, and manage his own expenses. If not, deuces. NTA, I wouldn't take him back after your phone is back on, either. Now this man is messing with my job, the one thing I thought he couldn't. Do you really want to live like this?
Next story.
This past weekend, I've, 22, female, met up with my in-laws to celebrate my nephew's turning 8. I love this kid to death, and we have a close bond, so I make it a priority to be active in anything involving him since I had a baby. Anyways, not the point. My baby is 11 months and will be 1 next month, and I take pride in them not ever getting sick, not even once. Well, my brother-in-law, 23, was recently sick, but over it. But everyone knows that the virus can still be in the system for a couple more days. He decided it was okay to kiss my 11-month-old all over the face. I was furious. Then I found out that the way his fever broke, my mother-in-law says, was by a cold sore outbreak. I didn't find this out till after 24 hours after we had left the event. Well, my baby got sick, extremely sick, for the first time ever. I'm talking about congested, nasty coughs and fever. We took him to his pediatrician. They asked questions, and I told them about what my brother-in-law did and his cold sores. I was told to be aware of any signs for RSV and immediately take them in, but that I can't do much more due to the age. I was devastated. I have slept a total of 6 hours these past 2 days, and nothing seems to work. He denies ever kissing my baby and claims we were sick. We don't ever get sick. That they weren't cold sore, but canker sores, and then had the nerve to say that my baby needs this to build immune system. He won't apologize and hasn't even reached out to even see if they are okay. Well, I just found out he did that out of spite because his stepson, 20 months old, is consistently sick. He thought it was only fair to have our baby get sick at least once so we know how it feels. I might have been an a-hole by telling him he will never know how it feels to stress and lose sleep about a sick child, because he isn't actually a dad. He's just playing a dad for a kid who isn't even his, and that is sad he doesn't have any common sense. At this point, I don't care. His wife is calling, leaving voicemail saying, I'm an AH, but as a mother, she should understand that having a sick child isn't funny. I'm furious at the fact that mother-in-law enables her man baby to think this is okay when my legit baby is suffering. BIL told his brother, my husband, he won't be involved anymore till I apologize, but I told him to eat rocks. AITA for refusing to apologize to brother-in-law? When I say playing dad, he's legit, just playing dad. His stepson has no dad. I don't know the background story. His wife has told me he hasn't done anything for her child, and only does when people are around to put up a show. Why she is with him, I have no idea. I've stepped up to help her out when she needs it. For example, I watch her child on nights because he refuses to even help with that while she's at work. I don't accept any form of payment because he's innocent. He's been around less than a year and has only shown the child anger issues.